My sister took credit for my work and Dad said, "She deserves the praise." I just said cool, then quit quietly. Days later they were on the news begging me to come back. They stood there, smiling, basking in applause that wasn't meant for them. The demo had just ended, our platform humming perfectly, every feature firing on cue. Clients clapped. Investors grinned. The software, the thing that pulled our family's company back from the brink of bankruptcy, worked like a dream. And then Sarah, my sister, stepped forward. Without a script, without a clue. "I couldn't have done it without the amazing support of our team," she said, brushing her hair behind her ear like she was accepting an award at some red carpet gala. "But really, this vision, this platform, it came from months of sleepless nights, deep strategy, and relentless design work. From me." A lie. The kind of lie that takes a second to say but years to prepare for. I waited for Dad to correct her. He didn't. Instead, he nodded proudly and actually said it. "She deserves the praise," he told the crowd. "She's the reason we're standing here today." That's when I knew. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't miscommunication or oversight. It was betrayal. Premeditated. Scripted. Practiced, maybe even rehearsed behind closed doors while I was buried in code. I turned to Sarah. She looked at me, daring me to contradict her. Then I looked at Dad. He avoided my eyes. That said more than words ever could. I gave a little nod. "Cool," I said. One word. Quiet. Like the click of a final puzzle piece. Then I walked off the stage. It's funny how the biggest betrayals never start loud. They start quiet, like the time Sarah asked me to simplify the admin dashboard for the presentation. She said it would overwhelm the investors. I thought she just wanted a cleaner UI. So I made a dummy interface, something safe to demo, something she couldn't break. What I didn't know was she was screen recording it. Or how, a week before launch, Dad started referring to the software as Sarah's idea during meetings. He'd do it casually, like he was just being conversational. But then he'd glance at me, just for a second, like he was watching to see if I'd correct him. I didn't. Not because I agreed. But because I thought, naively I admit now, that the work would speak for itself. The clients would see the architecture, the robustness of the platform, and they'd know. The code was mine. Every single line. Sarah doesn't even know how to reboot a server without Googling it. Still, things kept slipping. Her name was on the initial slide deck. Her face in the press kit. Her voice on the company voicemail. I didn't care about credit, not really, but something about how easily she inserted herself into what I had bled for. It left a cold feeling in my gut. Then, 2 nights before the launch, I caught a glimpse of an internal email thread between her and a potential client. She'd CC'd Dad. She was explaining the algorithm, my algorithm, as if she'd written it. Word for word, she quoted from the dev notes I had stashed in our shared project folder. "And Dad?" he replied with a thumbs up. That was the moment something broke in me, not loudly, not with a bang. But like a door gently swinging shut behind you, with a click you know you're not coming back from. I didn't confront them then. No shouting match. No dramatic reveal. I just opened a private shell on my laptop and began cataloging the components they didn't realize were still mine. The licenses. The back-end triggers. The API keys registered in my name. They didn't even know where the heartbeat of the system lived. That would be their first mistake. They toasted champagne the night after the launch. I stayed in my office. Alone, quiet, overlooked, just how I needed to be. That's when I started unplugging myself. Not recklessly. Not in anger. This was methodical. Surgical. The platform they had just paraded in front of the world? It was stitched together with more than code. It ran on private licenses I held personally. Third-party tools I'd integrated under my own developer accounts. Security keys linked to servers I paid for, quietly out of pocket, because the company was broke when I started. I opened my terminal, logged into my private server cluster, and initiated the first round of disconnections. Heartbeat API, deactivated. Client analytics, revoked. Authentication layer, Fallback set to expire in 72 hours. No one noticed at first. The system ran on cache sessions and existing tokens. Everything looked fine on the surface. But behind the scenes, it was unraveling. Next, I cleaned the codebase. Not to destroy it, just to extract me. I removed scripts I'd personally authored, pulled my modules from the shared repos, left only the scaffolding they thought they understood. I even did them a favor and replaced the dependencies with placeholders. Dummy versions. Enough to delay the crash, not prevent it. By the time I was done, the platform was a house running on backup power, already flickering. And still, they didn't notice. They were too busy booking interviews and reposting praise from tech blogs that didn't realize the architect had already left the building. 2 nights later, I got a text from Dad. "We're meeting with the State Tech Board tomorrow. Sarah's going to present the infrastructure design. Any final notes you want her to include?" I didn't reply. Just stared at the message until the screen dimmed. I'd already given them everything they asked for. Now they'd see what it meant to take something they didn't understand. It started with a login error. Just one user. Just one region. A small client in Arizona messaged Sarah's team saying they couldn't access their dashboard. She forwarded it to IT with a shrug. Then came the second. Then 5 more. By lunch, the support inbox had over 100 tickets, all variations of the same thing. Unable to connect to server. Session timed out. Sarah texted me. "Hey, is something wrong with the authentication module?" I didn't answer. She followed up with a call. I let it ring out, watching as her name flickered across the screen before vanishing like everything else she didn't build. By the end of the day, the crash was no longer isolated. The platform's spine, the auto-scaling engine, the cache system, the real-time data pipeline, all disconnected. And because they were tethered to services under my personal accounts, their fail-safes were gone. I had designed it that way for a reason. Not out of malice. Out of necessity. I knew someday they'd leave me behind. I just didn't expect them to do it smiling. At 3:17 p.m., the biggest client pulled out. And the rest followed like dominoes. Sarah went silent. No more texts. No more calls. By the time night fell, Dad sent a company-wide email titled, "Temporary system downtime, working to resolve." A lie. A stall tactic. But the damage was irreversible. The next morning, the company's Twitter page was flooded with complaints. Downtime. Lost revenue. Frustrated users. Screenshots of the frozen interface, mocking captions. Then, someone found the WHOIS info for the platform's original IP registry. And there it was, my name. Not Sarah's. Not the company. Mine. Within hours, the story hit local tech news. Unsung engineer walks after sister takes credit, entire platform crashes. I watched it unfold from my tiny apartment, sipping coffee, barefoot, the morning sun filtering through cheap blinds. And I smiled. Not out of revenge. Not out of spite. But because the silence had finally spoken. It took 2 days before someone from the press got my number. A junior reporter from the local tech outlet called while I was refilling my coffee. She sounded nervous, like she couldn't believe I had answered. "Is this Andrew Morgan? The original developer behind the Corelight platform?" I paused. Let the question settle. "Depends who's asking." She chuckled awkwardly. I'm writing a piece on what's happened at Corelight. A few sources have confirmed you built the infrastructure. Would you be open to speaking on the record?" I considered it. I'd spent years in the background. In the code. I never cared about credit, not publicly anyway. But watching Sarah step into a spotlight I wired with my bare hands? That left a mark. "Sure," I said. "But not for your blog. Tell your editor I'm willing to give one interview. If they're serious, make it count." They were serious. Within hours, I was on a Zoom call with a senior editor from a national tech magazine. I didn't embellish. I didn't trash them. I just told the truth. I walked them through the architecture, explained how the system was built on my private licenses, how the contracts were tied to me. I showed them screenshots, documentation, code commits. I even played them the original Slack voice notes where I pitched the concept, back when the company was weeks from closing its doors. And then I said it. They didn't just take the credit. They rewrote history and expected me to keep the machine running. Quietly. Invisibly. Forever. When the article went live, it detonated. He built it. She took credit. Now it's gone. Sarah went dark on social. Her LinkedIn was flooded with comments asking if she'd like to clarify her contribution. Dad issued a vague company statement about restructuring internal responsibilities. But it was too late. Because by then, I was already building something else. There's something sacred about starting over. Not from scratch, but from silence. From knowing exactly what broke you, and choosing not to replicate a single splinter of it. While Corelight flailed on life support, I was already writing the first lines of code for something better. Not a clone. Not a vengeance project. A clean slate. I named it Lucent. Where Corelight was patchwork, Lucent was pure. No borrowed parts. No legacy baggage. Just clear, scalable architecture. Every decision was intentional. Every feature was designed around trust, transparency, and control, the very things Sarah and my father had trampled on. At night I worked. During the day, I watched. The company I'd rescued was hemorrhaging. Headlines turned brutal. Corelight's collapse, when family betrayal meets bad business. Their stock tanked. Clients walked. Partners ghosted them. Internally, there were leaks, emails from panicked execs, needing transcripts with phrases like total failure, missing documentation, and rebuild from scratch? But you can't rebuild something you never understood. That's the part Sarah never got. She thought code was like a product, like a handbag you could show off, or a car you could pose with. But code is a language. It reflects the one who wrote it. And she didn't speak mine. Meanwhile, Lucent grew. I didn't market it, not at first. Just let it breathe. Built it quietly, like a tree in the dark, putting down roots. Until the first knock came. An email from a former Corelight client. Subject: Is this you? Attached was a screenshot from a local tech demo I'd quietly streamed, just a side project, I thought. A stripped-down trial version of Lucent's real-time integration system. I replied simply, yes. Let me show you what it can really do. That first client signed within a week. Then another. And another. They didn't ask who else built it. They didn't ask who deserved the credit. They asked questions about efficiency, security, performance. The kinds of questions people only ask when they're serious. And this time, I had answers. Contracts rolled in. Quiet ones, solid ones. I wasn't racing to be viral. I was building something that could stand. And then came the call. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. It was my father. His voice, tired but still trying to sound in control, said, Andrew, we need to talk. The system, we don't know how to. I hung up. 2 minutes later, Sarah called. I let it ring. Then I opened the media tab on my phone, pulled up the local news app, and there it was. Live, former tech heir breaks silence as family firm folds. I tapped the headline. The screen filled with shaky footage from a press conference. My father stood behind a podium, eyes sunken, suit rumpled. Sarah was beside him, staring straight ahead, mouth drawn tight. Then, a reporter asked the question. Can you explain what went wrong with the launch? My father's mouth opened, but it was Sarah who answered. Her voice cracked on the second word. I lied. She took a breath. Looked straight into the camera. It was all him. My brother. Andrew built everything. The room went quiet. Reporters murmured. My dad looked like he'd aged a decade in 5 seconds. I leaned back in my chair, watching it all from my new office. Lucent's logo glowed on the monitor in front of me, clean, sharp, mine. I placed a small bonsai tree beside the window, unpacked the last moving box, and clicked launch on our next client onboarding portal. Outside, the sun was setting. Inside, I smiled. Not with spite. Not with satisfaction. But with clarity. Because sometimes recognition doesn't come from those who share your blood. It comes from the world that watched you get back up, build again, and do it better. It was subtle at first. A forwarded email from a former Corelight board member. They've reached out to me asking for an introduction. I said I'd pass it along, but didn't commit. Just so you know. I didn't reply. The next day, a direct message hit my inbox. A name I hadn't seen in a while, Clara, one of Sarah's old friends from college, who'd ended up doing PR for the company. Hey Andrew. I know things got messy. Sarah's not doing well. Neither is your dad. They wanted to talk. Can I set something up? Still, I said nothing. Not because I was angry. I just had no interest in walking backward. Then, 1 week later, there was a knock at the door. I was mid-call with a new enterprise client, walking them through a demo of Lucent's modular deployment stack. The knock was polite, hesitant. I glanced at the time, 7:42 p.m. I opened the door halfway. And there she was. Sarah. Her hair was pulled into a low, uncertain ponytail. No makeup. No practiced smile. Not the version of her that liked to be seen. Just the raw one, the version I remembered from when we were kids, sitting at the kitchen table late at night, sneaking cereal and talking about our dreams. She didn't speak right away. Just looked at me with eyes that had finally stopped pretending. I messed up, she said. Voice small. I didn't answer. I just leaned against the doorframe. She continued, words spilling out now, like she'd rehearsed them 100 times but still didn't know how to say them right. Dad said it'd be fine. That it was just optics. That I could own the story while you handled the tech. And then everything snowballed. The interviews, the press. I got caught in it, and I didn't know how to get out. I raised an eyebrow. You mean you didn't want to? She flinched. Yeah, she whispered. That too. I should have slammed the door. I should have told her to leave. But I didn't. Because as much as she hurt me, and as much as Dad tried to use me, I needed to hear it, not for closure. For clarity. She stared down at her hands. He's not doing well. The board forced him out. He's losing the house. I think he's more angry at me than at you. I let that hang in the air. Good, I said. Maybe for once, he'll think about what he built, and what he tore down. Sarah nodded slowly. Then, after a moment, Lucent is incredible. I've seen it. Clients are talking. They all say it's what Corelight should have been. I didn't respond. Then she said it. The thing I never expected. I don't want to come back. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. For everything. The silence stretched out. Then I nodded. Okay, I said. You said it. She gave a sad smile. Do you ever think we could talk again? Like, as brother and sister? I didn't smile. But I didn't shut the door either. Maybe, I said. But not today. She turned and walked down the steps, slow and quiet. This time, there was no performance. No audience. Just a sister walking away, alone. And me? I closed the door, went back to my desk, and picked up the call I'd paused. Sorry about that, I told the client, slipping my headset back on. Now, as I was saying, our deployment model allows you to scale seamlessly across verticals, without dependency lock-in. Because while the past had knocked, the future was calling. It came on a Thursday. My inbox pinged with a subject line that felt oddly casual for what it contained. Let's talk, from Preston Tech Group. I thought it was spam at first. Or maybe a recruiter. But then I saw the sender, Cynthia Ward, VP of Strategic Acquisitions at Preston. The same Preston Tech Group that had just acquired 2 upstart platforms in the past year, both at 8-figure deals. Her email was short. Polite. Professional. We've been watching Lucent grow. Very impressive work. Our team would love to discuss what it might look like to bring you, and your vision, into the Preston family. Let me know if you'd be open to a conversation. I leaned back in my chair. Lucent wasn't even a year old. I'd built it without funding, without a team, just nights, coffee, and the kind of clarity only betrayal can give you. And now this? I didn't reply right away. Instead, I printed the email and pinned it to the corkboard in my office. Not as a trophy. Just as proof. Proof that walking away hadn't been weakness. It had been the beginning. The boardroom looked the same. Same glass walls. Same polished table. Same skyline stretching beyond the windows, reflecting light off a city that never looked back. Except this time, I wasn't sitting at the far end with a laptop and a legal pad. I was at the head. It wasn't Preston Tech's office. Not yet, anyway. This was the Corelight boardroom. Or what remained of it. They'd reached out 3 times since Sarah's press conference. At first, it was through intermediaries. Then came the formal letter from their remaining legal counsel, an invitation to explore potential collaboration to stabilize and recover operations. I didn't reply. Until Preston called again. This time, the number was bigger. Not just a buyout, they wanted to absorb Lucent, bring me on as chief systems architect, hand me full control of a new division under their tech umbrella. It was the kind of offer that changes your life forever. But before I signed anything, I asked for one thing. A meeting. Here. In this room. With the people who said I was just a developer. With the sister who deserved the praise. With the father who taught me, without realizing it, how to never let someone else define your worth. And so, they came. Dad was quiet when he entered, wearing the same suit he wore to the launch that day. He looked smaller now. Like the light inside him had gone dim, but was still trying to flicker back on. Sarah walked in after, clutching a file folder like it would protect her. She didn't meet my eyes. I waited for the lawyers to settle. Then I opened my laptop, connected it to the projector, and brought up a single slide. Lucent, what Corelight could have been. Dad shifted in his seat. Is this necessary? No, I said. But it's deserved. I walked them through what I'd built, quietly, independently, without their help. The clients I'd brought back. The investors reaching out. The revenue projections. I showed them the dashboard Sarah had once claimed to design, this time built in real time, on live servers, clean, fast, untouchable. Then I clicked to the final slide. Lucent will never be for sale to Corelight. The room went still. Sarah swallowed hard. So, this meeting is just to humiliate us. I looked at her, really looked. There was no defiance in her face now. Just fatigue. Regret, maybe? Or maybe just the weight of not being able to hide behind a borrowed title anymore. No, I said. This meeting is for me. Dad opened his mouth. Closed it. He looked down, then finally muttered. We didn't know what we had. You did, I said. You just thought you could keep it without honoring it. I stood up, packed my laptop, and walked toward the door. Preston's offer is on my desk, I added without turning back. I'll sign it. Not for the money. But because they saw me before the headlines did. And then, almost as an afterthought, I said, I forgive you. But I won't save you. I walked out. The elevator ride down was quiet. Peaceful. No applause, no betrayal, no weight on my chest. Just the soft hum of moving forward. The new office isn't flashy. Just clean lines, warm light, a window that faces east. I stood there this morning, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up. Behind me, Lucent hummed, stable, scaling, real. On the screen, muted, a news clip played. Sarah, tear-streaked, stood at another podium. I lied, she said, voice breaking. It was all him. I didn't flinch. Just took another sip. Turned the clip off. Finished unpacking the last box. Then I sat down, logged in, and got back to work. Where I'd belonged all along.